What's going on, guys? And welcome back to another episode of Stereotherapy. I'm your host, Lisa.
And I'm Justine.
And if you're new here, this is the show that showcases the importance of music and mental health. Remember, as always, if you are enjoying this thing and want to support the little show, just leave us a positive rating or review on any platform you are currently listening to this right now. We really just can't thank anyone enough that has already done so. And if you haven't, if you want to go do it, we appreciate you. Today, we are back talking about some of those beloved bands of ours. And if you thought there weren't some that we'd covered and you're thinking when we're covering them, they're coming, I promise. And this band is one we're talking about. But if you clicked on this, you know who we are talking about. We are talking about Bayside. This is one we have wanted to do for a while. And honestly, just before we get into this episode a little bit. And I just want to be clear too that this episode is clearly dedicated to a longtime friend of mine. And I met him through Circus Survive and going to a show in Poplar Grove, Illinois, that little town back in the day. My friend Will is just going through so much health wise. And honestly, it just, it really just messes me up when people I know are going through things they shouldn't have to. And I think we all know someone like that, but he's just such a warrior and so strong for taking on his diagnosis of his brain cancer. And he's stronger than I'll ever be. He just loves this band so much. And Will, if you are listening to this, I love you. This is just a little step to give you something to get your mind off of things for a little bit. Because I know you love Bayside. You have Bayside tattoos, and you say this band and Circa have literally saved your life. And I think that's what this podcast is all about. And I will also post his GoFundMe below if you're able to just make things a little more bearable for him, send him some joy dealing with this unthinkable thing. And I just can't imagine what it's like. And I'm trying to get through it a little bit and not, it's a really, I cannot imagine all people go through when they have something like cancer. So I just sending you the biggest virtual hug, Will, and I hope you enjoyed this one. And again, I'll have the GoFundMe down below if you would like to. If not, that's okay. If you want to give a share, it would just help things be a little calming for a little bit, whatever we can do. And I think it's just all about being there for each other. And okay, I'm trying to get through that without, crying on the podcast, but just because it just hits. I think we've all either known someone that has gone through cancer and it just is awful and horrible. And I know people maybe didn't expect that when they clicked on this. We're going to talk about Bayside, but I can't leave that out there. And the main motivation for doing an episode like this was my friend Will. So again, Will, I love you. And I'm going to stop rambling, but to kind of bring it up a little bit, Justine, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. And my body's been kind of all out of whack in flares because the temperature keeps changing back and forth. But other than that, I'm good. I'm getting excited because this weekend I'm going to go see Anthony Green and I'm super pumped.
Oh my God, I'm so jealous. I am so jealous of that because, well, we know we were already talking about that. But I'm so happy for you though, because I know it's been such a while since you've seen him. So
Yeah.
I am so excited for you. I'm gonna be living through you. Like, oh God, was he play? It just because I know what a great time I had back in December. So I can own, oh, I'm so jealous. Anyone that goes that tour, if you can get a Doom spun for me, anybody, that CD that's out there he has, just I don't know. I'll pay the shipping. Because he's got some cool merch on this run too, like artwork and stuff. And I think those lyrics, those original lyrics and drawings books that he had that were like only 500, I think he has them. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that was just people bringing them and getting them signed, I saw. But if you are there, get the book. The forward in it is like, oh my God. Just I can't wait. I can't wait to hear all about it. I'll be like waiting up, like, Justine, tell me about it. Kind of
Oh
like
my
you did with
gosh.
me back in December.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with the weather. Like I suffer from horrible migraines. So I literally had a hell of a day yesterday with the weather here in New Jersey. But I'm excited too because although I'm not seeing Anthony Green, pretty soon I get to see Bayside, who we're talking about with Finch, Armor for Sleep, and I think Winona Fighter. And then I get to see an amazing Thursday show that's like 250 capacity room. I already bought my earplugs because I'm like, Jeff Berkeley will not do this to me again. He did it to me once with United Nations and blowing out my ears, I swear. It's not going to happen again. So I bought earplugs. So I'll let everybody know if these loop earplugs are as good as they're advertised. I don't know. We're gonna find out at that show.
I mean, I've heard a lot about them, like, in the autistic community, so,
Oh, okay.
yeah, people wear them a lot for, when they get overstimulated and, like, when they have to go out, so I'm sure they're great.
Cool. All right. Well, then that's good to know because I was like, oh, these better work. But I mean, I guess if you are clicking on this for the first time, yeah, this is kind of what we do sometimes. We check in with each other and everything. We are getting to Bayside. I know like someone's probably going to be sitting there with the button, but I don't care. This is what we do. We check in, we say hi, we try and make it not seem so robotic of a podcast where it's like, all right, guys, let's just get into it. I guess that's like my manly little like dude with a keyboard. Anyways, no shading, no shading, everybody. But like let's just start this out with like how did with the how like we discovered Bayside and like got into them and Justine, like I want to hear your story because we were already talking a little bit about Bayside and who we know that listens to them and doesn't or don't know really. Like both of us had a similar thing, but for you, like how where does your start story sort of start with Bayside?
So, this one isn't as fun as, like, some other stories. So, uh, my ex introduced him to me. He was playing them in the car. I asked who it was, and then he burned me their CD. And before we actually started the episode, we were actually talking about it. I'm like, I don't think I knew anybody that was actually in the Bayside. I didn't know any friends that were into them. Even currently, my fiance doesn't even know who they are. So it's like
Right? Like I
one of
feel
those
like
things.
that's the
Like
thing
I
about
just,
Bayside. Like it's
yeah, it's
weird.
like it's you either know them or you don't, and it's
Mhm.
like But that's also been one of the greatest things about and having this podcast with Lisa is being able to talk about all these bands that I've loved that I've never had anybody to talk about with. So, but yeah, so I didn't really have any interaction with the fan base of Bayside because it was pretty much just me being into them and nobody around me knew who they were. But I got to see them a couple times in concert and they're really great live. I actually had this shirt that I'd gotten from one of the shows and I still love it. I have it like saved in my like I have a bucket of band shirts that don't fit me anymore, but I don't get rid of them. And it was made to look like Metallica's Master of Puppets. And every time I wore it, it would crack me up because Metallica fans would think that I was wearing a Metallica shirt, and then they realized it didn't say Metallica, it said Bayside, and they got really irritable about it, and I thought it was hilarious, and that's why I got it. So
I don't know, like, that's so weird when we were talking, like, Bayside's been around so long, and they're another band that, like, they haven't left, right? Like,
yeah,
most bands, they left, they took a hiatus, and I think that it just is their longevity, and I think it's weird. No, I don't wanna say weird, but I just think so many people, I don't know, for whatever reason, haven't or didn't check them out.
yeah,
And it's like I first discovered them, like, it had to be 2004 because someone was raving about this band in my TV production class, and at the time, I was finding music through, like, Pure Volume or whatever Absolute Punk would say, and, like, obviously, I later learned, and this may make some people mad that loved Absolute Punk, but I really don't care. I can speak my piece now, but, like, you shouldn't take advice from a website or magazine and what's cool, you know? Like, I
yeah.
feel like that's the
No,
thing,
I
like,
agree.
so many people back in the day, "Oh, this is 5 star. Oh, this is Jason Tate's," whatever, and look, I'm not here to dog Jason Tate, but even well anyways, I'm not anyways, I don't know, I doubt he's listening to this. I just have my views on some things. I had a run-in once, but whatever. I'm not
I
anyways,
feel like that with any media though too, like, I
yeah.
don't feel like you should judge ratings for movies or shows or anything. If it sounds like
No.
a topic you like, watch it anyways or
Right.
listen to it anyways, because like, you you might not have anything in common with that person that's rating it. So I'm very anti like ratings.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, you even look at, like, I mean, it happened with Absolute Punk, or not Absolute Punk, oh god, Alternative Press with,
Yes, yeah.
Paramore. So many
Mhm.
people were like, "Oh, this CD riot," and then look at what Paramore has become, and look at what that CD did, right? So it's like, I just think that, I don't know, we were in that time that I think it was just, I don't know, back in the day, album reviews, those were all the things, and you will never see me do an album review. I used to do them for my little site. I would never ever do them again because I realize I don't have any credentials for giving a review and either, you know, kissing someone's ass or also
Yeah.
just being like, "Oh, this is a 7 out of 10." What are my credentials? I don't play music. I don't write music. I don't do anything. Like, and just because I think it's good doesn't mean, so it's like
Yeah.
it was
I
one of
was gonna
those
say, even if
things.
you did have credentials, I don't think that makes you like the expert of what's in, what's not. Like it's an opinion.
Yeah.
Everybody can like what they like. Like you don't have to go based off somebody else, you know?
No.
It's weird to me.
And I think, I don't know, maybe that's, I I'm not sure, like, with Bayside, but it's like for me, I remember seeing them all over the magazines or Pure Volume and things like that, and I just remember people saying, "Oh, Bayside is a cult. They're a cult," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool, like, let me go check this band out. They're a cult." Like, like,
Yeah.
nearly everybody, if you do not know, no, they're not like, we're not thinking culty, but, like, it's, if you like Bayside, you know what it is. Like, it's
Yeah.
literally the fan base. It's a positive thing. It's not because I could just see someone right now, "What?" But no. But I think it just spoke to that because I remember the record I heard was, like, Sirens and Condolences, and I was just hooked because I feel like as much as the time frame of that, like, era, and people wanna call it emo or, I don't know, pop punk, all that stuff,
Yeah.
but I think you could never really lump Bayside in a category, and again, I just love bands like that, much like My Chem, where, like, they're their own sound and being so good at what they do. You literally can't say, "Oh, Bayside is punk. Oh, they're emo, they're pop punk or rock even." Like, I don't even know what you would call them. Like, and I think that's again why I love Bayside, and I just always gravitated towards them because you really couldn't lump them. I mean, yeah, they toured with
Yeah.
these bands. They were on Victory Records, and they toured, with the likes of Silverstein and other bands
Yeah.
of that era, but it was like, I don't know, like, even songs like, I mean, we'll go into it later, but, like, Masterpiece that became an anthem. I just found myself on so many tours just seeing this band, and it made me a fan because if you've ever seen this band, you know what I'm talking about. Like, if you haven't, you have to go see Bayside. They're just so good, and they just, this incredible tour is coming, like, I'm seeing them with Finch, Armor for Sleep, like I just said, Winona Fighter, but I just can't wait to see Bayside again because it's been a hot minute since I've seen them, and I think we all just discovered bands like this in such a unique way, and I would love to hear it. Hit me up, share your story if you've found this band, and I think too, like, talking about Bayside, we have to talk, like, they suffered a huge loss. They suffered the loss of their drummer Beats, and when Beats passed away from that van accident, and they were on, I wanna say Victory Records. Like, I don't know if do you remember, like, when that went down, Justine, where, like, they
Oh,
lost,
I don't remember
like,
that at all.
oh my god, just so if you haven't, it was early on, and I wanna say it was 2005. So, it was pretty early on in their career, and they suffered a tragic van accident in which 3 of the members were thrown out of the van. Beats did not make it, and they were on tour to the next date. It's like, I just can't imagine losing a band member early on in your career. You're on tour, that's how you make your living. Now you have to grieve the loss of your friend and drummer. Like, I just, like, I cannot imagine. That's how I really got into Bayside because I was, like, looking into that, right? Like, everybody was talking about beats, and I really wasn't sure. And then I looked on that and I was like, "Holy shit, like, that's horrible." Like, I can't imagine as a band, you're on tour, you're on the road, and that unthinkable happens. And then in the back of your mind, you have to think about, "Okay, well, this is what we do for a living," Like, you wanna be able to grieve, but your record label is probably, and especially Victory Records. Victory Records was just a horrible record label. Like, come on. Like, they were just awful. Tony Brummel was just awful. But, like, I just think that a band like Bayside is just like, I don't know. I give them so much credit and just I admire their strength because I don't know if I had lost somebody. I don't know. I don't know if I would have went on. I don't know. I can't imagine. But yeah, I mean, if anyone's not aware, you can look it up and it's we're coming on 20 years of that passing and that passing was everywhere on like all the major, like music sources because it was just the unthinkable, right? You're a band on tour and you lose a band member. And I I don't know. I just remember and then hearing the song Winter that came out and not a dry eye when they were singing that one back in like the '07, or '06 era and I just ugh. So yeah, I guess anyone that didn't know that, I commend a band like Bayside for hanging in there and just getting through that because when we talk about music and mental health and bands' mental health, I cannot imagine their mental state and during that and having to get back out on the road at some point without their band member and friend and just hats off to Bayside. Not to bring it down again because I don't want to bring it down, but I think it's important to talk about Bayside and how that probably affected them in that. And
Yeah. I
I
mean, that's
mean,
probably a big part of their story, so
oh, it is. And that's why I'm shocked. I'm not shocked, but like,
yep.
I don't know. Maybe it was just something, maybe people around me were talking about it, or I
Just
was,
saying, like, it might just be because I didn't know anybody that else was fans, so I probably didn't, like, you
maybe,
know what I
because,
mean?
yeah,
So
it was a huge part of their story. And I just think that it sort of like when I heard Winter and they wrote that song about that, and I just literally was like, everybody live when you would hear that was just like crying. And I think that I don't know, it just strengthened that fan base too, to being like, it's like you lost a friend, like we were talking about in the last episode with Sarah, like you lose a friend almost, like in just how close you are with a band, but just just thinking about it, I remember where I was when that happened and being so shaken up. And I know so many other Bayside fans will feel the same. And just, I can't imagine. And that's why I think we also have to realize when bands go out on tour, what they're really doing and what dangers sometimes with these weather, and especially in the winter, right? When they're traveling and just what musicians go through. And I just hope that they had some mental health services around them. I don't know because the timing of it, right? Like back in the day, like we didn't really have that. And I just hope that there was some healing from them. But we'll bring it up a notch about Bayside. We'll bring it up. But I just that's such an important part of their story. And I think if anyone never if didn't know for whatever reason, because I think again, like you said, I know a lot of people that don't really know Bayside. They don't know anything or they know one song. So maybe look into that and their story and seeing what kind of band they are is so important. And I mean, we want to get into like our favorite records or songs. Like Justine, I'm interested in you because again, this is a band, like you said, like we didn't really like, I know that you like them, and that's why I was like,
yeah,
"Yes, alright, good, you like them, we can talk about Bayside," but, like, I don't think we've ever discussed, like, "Oh, I like this song," or, like, "I like that song," or whatever, so, like, what are your
yeah.
favorites from them?
So, for me, it's all about the entire self-titled album. Like,
Mhm.
that
Oh,
one's
it's
my
so
favorite.
good. Yeah.
I still go back to it after all these years. I would say it's still, like, within one of my top favorite albums. If I had to pick only 3 songs, though, from it, it would probably be "Devotion and Desire," "Blame It on Bad Luck," and "Existing in a Crisis." I also love the album "The Walking Wounded."
Yes.
I
Oh my god, that's my favorite.
yeah,
Yeah.
I always loved, Walking Wounded, but, of course, I also love so I might pronounce this wrong, it's like I don't know how to say it, Mackinac? Ma
No, I know what you're talking about.
you know what song I'm
I
talking about?
can
It's from
never say
Shudder.
that one either,
I have no idea how to say that. I'm so sorry, people don't judge me, but, like, I love that song too.
No, me too. I know what you're talking about, like, that's yeah, yeah, it's
Mackinac? I don't know.
yeah. Sorry,
I don't know how to say
any fan or
it.
Bayside, if
Please
you were
don't judge
listening to
me.
this and you were listening to this, do not judge. We just love this song, okay? We've all been there. I know you're talking about though, yes.
But yeah, I still the self-titled album though, it's just
Mhm.
I constantly will go back to it, and that album in its entirety is just it's so perfect. Like, I don't really skip anything on that album. It's just so good. And especially if I am frustrated or like kind of angry, I'll put that album on quite a bit.
Oh, same, and it's like I sort of shared it already, like, I love Sirens and Condolences, that was my kinda gateway to Bayside, obviously, but it'll always hold that special place for me, and again, like, I have to shout out the song Masterpiece because lyrically, that song just hits and so many can resonate with it, and you see why fans gravitated towards this band or why they still do, and I think, like, the lyrics, like, "And I swear I could take your pain and, frame it on and hang it on my wall, maybe you would never have to hurt at all," and I think so many people I think it's also Anthony Ranieri's vocals that grabbed me about Bayside because, again, it was just so different. Like, I don't know, like, I feel like even if Anthony Ranieri wanted to ever go, I don't know, a different route of this music, he just has such a beautiful vocal range that he could. Not that I want him to because, I just love Bayside, and I could imagine, like, in any other way, and I think that's what, like, signifies Bayside is Anthony's vocals, but again, like, I just think that people flock to this band because they're so open and honest about the lyrics and being that, I guess, cult, like, being everybody loves if you love Bayside, you love them. I don't think, again, there's an in between with this band. You either haven't heard of them, you don't like them, or you absolutely adore them. Like, I think there's just that's how I feel about Bayside at least, but, another one of my favorites is, like, Don't Call Me Peanut.
Yeah,
This
it's a good
song
one.
this song is another one because at the time, being a young girl and going through my many little loves and just life shit that gets tossed at you, I can relate to this one. I think anyone going through anything just and if you ever seen Anthony perform this acoustic, because I got to see him on the Where's the Band tour, and it was Dustin Kensrue, Anthony Ranieri, Matt Pryor of the Get Up Kids. Oh, and there was somebody else. I don't know. Oh, it's bothering me. But no, not Chris Conley. I don't know, but maybe it was, but anyways, and how amazing it was to see that, and I actually have a weird story, but I ended up fainting at the Where's the Band tour. I don't know why. I don't know if it was hotter than hell. We were at this little house cafe in DeKalb, and I was really hot. I don't know, but I remember being really hot. I remember Anthony Ranieri playing, and I had fainted. I didn't even know, and everyone around me is like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "What?" Like, I didn't even know what happened, but anyways, I go to the back after the set, and I'm sitting there, and I'm getting, like, a brownie or something because, like, I fainted, and, like, I was like, "What the like, what is going on here?" Lo and behold, Anthony Ranieri is sitting by the merch table, and literally, I gushed to them how much again, one of the nicest people ever. I met him at Warped Tour too. I posted a photo and literally just one of the nicest, kindest bands too. If you've ever gotten to meet them, they appreciate their fans and will listen to you gush and just I think they're just so important. So I just had to get that out there, even though I fainted. But my fainting led to me being in the back and able to meet him. So it was a win-win. I still don't know to this day why I fainted, but yeah, don't be too hot, don't bring your coat into a venue, and eat something before the show. That's my lesson for
Yeah,
you.
I was gonna say, I'm like, I feel like so many of us have probably almost did or did faint back in the day because like,
Mhm.
we would do that. We would just go and, like, not eat properly and, like,
Yeah. Oh
go
my
on a
gosh.
show or, like, Warp Tour where you are out in, like, 100 plus degree weather and
Yes.
not drinking enough water and then pass out in the crowd.
100%,
You
like, oh,
know?
yeah. Like, and I still to this day don't know, but I was like, for some reason, it led me to talk to him, and he was so nice and kind, and I will never forget that. And gosh, I have such a long list of favorite songs. I just love them so
It's
much, I
okay.
guess. So I got, a newer song was Bad Intentions. I think it's everything that Bayside is in what they do best, and I think it's one of those songs that is just oh, it came out I don't know, I forget when it came out, maybe summer or, spring, and I was just going through a lot of shit, and I was like, "This is just so fucking good," and I absolutely love it. Montauk, I love I and I.
Yeah.
Landing Feet First, I swear, and I know I've said this many times to G when I was like, "Whenever we do get married, I'm gonna be very picky and selective about my music and what
I've
gets
said the
played."
same thing.
I'm gonna be
I
that
said the same
person. He's
thing.
like, "Oh, it's gonna be a punk rock concert." And I'm like, "No, I'm gonna have other stuff too." But like, I would have Landing Feet First as a first dance or something because it's just such a beautiful song. And I think it was a little different for Bayside at the time. There was a lot of aggression. There was a lot of topics, um, kind of surrounding, I guess, mental health, however you want to depict the lyrics. But there was just a sweet song, love song. And I know it was, about past an ex-wife of Anthony Ranieri at the time, and he's since now married and another little one to add to his family recently. But I just think that this song was so beautiful, and it's still Landing Feet First is one of my favorite songs. And I know people just hold me to it that it'll be in my wedding. Just hold me to it. Because I've said like 10 other songs, but I love it. Duality, I love Duality.
That's a good one.
Mona Lisa, Winter, because again, like I said, it's thinking about beats, thinking about them writing this, seeing them perform it. There's just something about that song. Masterpiece, The Walking Wounded again is one of I know it is the most popular to me
It's good though.
record. It is so good.
It's so good though.
So if you
That's
are
why I'm
listening
like, I feel like nobody should judge. It's just because something's
no.
popular doesn't mean that it's overrated. It just means it's that good. Like I, you know,
100%, and I think if you are listening to this and you're not a fan of Bayside, start with this record.
yeah,
I think that gives you but then just keep going because, like, Killing Time, I think so many of the recent records that they've put out are so good, and I mean, like, Castaway, the newer song, it actually you will hear our one of our guests, Kaylee Goldsworthy, she was on the gang vocals for this song, so listen to that if you're a fan of her, but, like, Bayside are just oh, they're just so, so good, and, again, Blame It on Bad Luck. I had that one too because it's just,
it's
like,
so good.
the one
It's
where it's
just
like, oh,
so good.
if, like, he could, wondering what his, uh, ah, what's that lyric? Where it's like, "I wonder what my first
Oh,
smoke
what
was."
my first fuck up.
Yes, and
Mhm.
band that would change my life, and it changed my life. Okay, now I got it.
Yeah,
Don't kill me, guys. I love that song so much, and
it's so good.
We'll Be Okay. Like, I just, it's just so, so good, and they have a new record coming out. It'll be on digital on April 5th. They have the physical on May 10th. It's gonna be titled There Are Worse Things Than Being Alive. So there we go, everybody. But I think they just keep getting better and better and better as they go. And if you listen to their records, you slept on them, you've never heard of them, I don't know, just message us and we'll give you some gateways. But these songs are definitely places to start for sure because just so good. Like, I've been listening to The Walking Wounded so much when I knew we were gearing up for this because I think it's such a special record, and I think that record specifically became an anthem for so many people. I think that especially at the time, and again, Bayside just they had these heavy guitar riffs.
Yeah,
They're just Bayside. They've always come out. I've seen them with New Found Glory. I've seen them with Alkaline Trio. I've seen them with I don't know, all these different bands, and it's just they just get so heavy, then I think people wanna lump them into that, "Oh, they're emo." No, they're not. Like,
yeah,
let
no,
let
they're just like you said, they're one of those bands it's hard to place. Like, Circus Survive, I felt is kind of in the
yeah.
same boat where you
Oh,
like
yeah.
all these different crowds of people love them, but like they didn't fit in any of those crowds. Like, and this is the same case because, like you said, like their guitar riffs are really heavy, and I don't think
Yeah.
people expect that whenever they like because of who they played with and like the crowds of people that they attract. Like they're just not who you would expect, and they're amazing and they're
Oh.
great.
Oh my god. Like I said, I can't wait to see them live, and I think that anytime I see Bayside, it's just so good. It's one big sing along, and I think there are so many reasons why so many fans just flock to them, and I'm one of them. I've listened to them since like 2004, and it's insane to think about. It's gosh, 20 years. So, but
I
I
know.
still love this
It's
band, and
wild.
finding that old picture of me with Anthony at Warped Tour, I was like, "Holy shit," like, if I could tell myself back then in '09, like, "Hey, one day you're gonna have a podcast and you're gonna be able to gush about this band, and other
Mhm.
people are gonna resonate with that," and, like, that was just a wild thing, and I mean, something I wanna touch on is I was really looking at some things about Bayside because I know that the members have talked about mental health, but, like, I was digging and I was like, "Oh, I can't." But I found this really, really wonderful interview and these topics of Chris, their drummer, and he was on this show, the podcast, the Creo Show, and I'll link it. It's an hour and a half. I know it's an hour and a half, guys, but I think you need to listen to this if you wanna get but I'll break it down a little bit because it's so good. Like, he opens up and deals with and talks about anxiety and depression, and he was so open about and I think just again, it's just such worth a watch, and I'm glad it took some digging, but I found it, and Chris talks about therapy and taking medication and being on an SSRI and how he's more present and aware and how out of control he felt. But I think it's so good, like Justine, you've said this before, to have conversations
Yeah.
about medication and taking medication because medication has that stigma around it already. And I
Yeah.
think he was so open about how, yeah, it made him present, but also, like, it could take a couple of the proper dosage to find what is your
Yeah.
mix and
I feel
how
like
it
that's, like, a big part of it too, is that people don't realize how much time it could take to find the right one, and then they
Mhm.
think it's just, like, a bunch of BS because it's like, "Well, it's not working." You know? So I love
Yeah.
that he talked about that.
Yeah, and, like, how it, even affects his sex life at times. I think that's a big thing that
Yeah.
people take these things, and I just think that it was so good to have someone have that conversation, and again, like, it's such a stigma around medication, and, he also talks about from journaling and how great that has been from him, and I love that conversation about that because I think it's an underrated tool. We always ask people on this
Yeah.
podcast, "What are your tools?" And they may say journaling, but I think one of the things he was so open about is, like, if you write things down in front of you and you have it all out there and to
Yeah.
see it, to physically see whatever it is, to be like, "Holy shit, like, this is
I
what
need to
I."
start up journaling again though,
I
by the
do
way. So
too.
thank you for reminding me about
Yeah.
this. So, yeah, it was heavily requested by my therapist to do journaling. And I'm one of those people that even when I was younger and like, when diaries were big and everything, like I never really knew what to write about or
Mhm.
anything. And I think that's something that people should know about is the fact that they make prompt journals now where it's like you just fill in the answers and or whatever activity they're asking you to do, which is super helpful if you're like one of those people like me where you're like, I don't know what to talk about. I didn't do anything today or anything
Mhm.
like that. Um, there's so many different kinds you can get. There's one called like burn after reading or burn after writing or something like that kind of journaling. There is there's so many you can find them everywhere. I think I have a witchcraft one even. I ended up collecting a bunch. I had a bunch and I kept talking about it to my therapist and I just like never journal now. And I'm like, I have a bunch just hanging around. I need to start doing that again. But like, yeah, I feel like if you are curious about journaling, but that's been like one of your things where you're scared of doing it because you don't know what to talk about, they make those where you just fill it in and it makes it so much easier and less stressful, you know?
Yeah, that's so like, that's why I loved when he said that because our last guest, Sarah, said the same thing too, and to have it written out like that, and I just think that he further goes on from his journaling, and he also talks about, like, how in life you are often you often are what you are put through. And how you push through it and you try to learn from everything. So maybe you're anxious or maybe you're going through depression, but like it's stemmed off of all these little things you've went through, right? And where you're at and like those things have sort of made you that way and that life is like shit happens and changes people, whether you are battling a mental illness, or you suffer a loss and then you develop your depression, all those things happen. And I think that you have to figure out and take those steps. And, he talks about having a therapist and being vulnerable and how it's okay not knowing what to do and trying to find the steps to get there. And the stigma of men's mental health. He went in so hard in this, which is why I'm like, you have to watch it, because he really went in about men's mental health and how people want to be seen and they want to be heard, and letting out all those just crappy things that happen to us and having someone there, and how men have pushed against therapy because it's seen as a weakness, and how
Mhm.
you can try to figure out things on your own. And sometimes that can make things worse, and how hard it is to find a good therapist. And I think just that was just so good to hear. And I commend Chris, and you're welcome on this show anytime, by the way. So I just think, because I think hearing him say this was like, oh, this is what we're talking about. And I think it was just such a conversation to hear him talk about this. And then he further goes on to, like, sometimes how that guilt of being unproductive during those moments, right? And being kinder to yourself. And that it's something that I needed to hear, because G and I were talking the other day and just talking about other stuff. And G's like, you need to be kinder to yourself. You're not kind to yourself. And then I watched this interview with Chris from Bayside, and I was like, yeah, like, something is telling me I need to be kinder to myself, because sometimes I am really down, whether it's the way I look or even this podcast, right? If we put something out, sometimes I'm like, oh, I fucked up in that edit, or oh, that, I cut that out, or I did something not, or whatever it is. And I think you always hear that guilt of when you are going through something mental, with your mental health, that you're unproductive, right? And so many times I'm like, oh, I didn't, like yesterday, I did nothing. I did nothing. I had 10 million things I needed to do. I didn't do any of them. So I could feel him in that guilt. And then he later goes on also to talk about the younger generation and how they're looking into things, whether parents or peers, and being like, hey, I need to change that. And I think to see that shift in conversation, and I think he's so right, because even me, you know, as I gotten older, it was like, I need to change this, or I'm noticing this from when I was younger, and that's not okay, whether it was a parent or teacher. And I think it was just so great to say that, yeah, we are making strides in mental health awareness. And I love that he brought that up, because I just think it's so important to talk about that. And especially him being a guy and talking about
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
because he touched on so many things about mental health and what they do, and what we need to do, where we need to go, and how more and more people, and how it's so hard to find a good therapist. And I think that's something we've talked about too. And I know, Justine, like, you've
yeah,
been through it, where it's like that's in itself, and it can be so defeating. And I think
definitely.
I just loved everything I found about him. Like, I was like, I'm so happy, because even if you don't wanna watch it and you're just listening to this now, and maybe you're like, "Oh, I just wanted to listen to this because I wanted to hear them talk about Bayside songs." Yeah, like, you can listen to so many podcasts here, but I think that talk about that, and maybe they give their hot takes. But for this, it was so interesting to bring that, and just it made me respect Bayside even more, because just to have that platform and talk about it and be open about it. And, even like Chris has talked about, like, how he can't really have coffee at times, because it makes things worse. Caffeine makes my alcohol. Like, I've been very open. I mean, maybe I'll be open on this podcast. I am almost a year of giving up drinking. And it was a little scary at first, because, what do you do sometimes when you're going through it? You cover it up. And getting rid of alcohol, and, like, he even says he drinks less too in this interview, and in caffeine, and giving up that, and how better he felt. And I agree, like, it's to face things head on is very scary. But I guess to anyone on the fence too that's feeling a certain way about their mental health, and they're thinking of giving up something, whether it's caffeine, something in their life, or alcohol, try it because I'm telling you, I feel very, very good. And it is tough because when you're out with people and in a social setting, right? They'll be like, why aren't you drinking? Like, nobody ever, it's like that meme. Nobody ever asks you, like, why you don't like mayonnaise, right? If you're like, oh, no mayonnaise, right? But if you're like, hey, no, I don't want to drink, it's like, "Oh, well, what?
It's
Are you
always a big
sure?
deal.
Are you sure?" And I've dealt with it, but like, I
I've dealt
just,
with that my entire life as never being a drinker.
right? And it's
Yeah,
like,
I'm
it's
the only one in my
wild.
family who does not like to drink, and they're always just like, "Come on, just try this drink." And I'm like, "Leave me alone." It's like,
Yeah,
quit being a
it,
pusher. Like,
and I think people forget that, like, alcohol, caffeine, that can make your mental illness worse. It really can. Some people are able to have it, and they do that, and that is great, and that is fine if that works for you, but I think if you're noticing that, and I loved that he had said that, where he had had, like, coffee once, and he realizes, "Oh, well, you know what? I'm going to sort of be a certain way now," and realizing that in his mental health, and I think just it was just such a great conversation. Like, I can't say it enough. I mean it. Like, if you have the time, you wanna put it on in the background, go listen to it because I think it really shows what band members go through, and I think it's just such an important listen or watch because it's YouTube. But I just thought I'd share. Like, if you're going through a hard time, I feel you. Like, I've been trying to do everything to help my mental health, whether it was, like, lifting weights recently and the no alcohol, which let trust me, like, I've never was a big drinker, but I think when you're going through things, it's easy to cover it up with things, and I just my hat's off to anyone else that else is struggling too and maybe can't give it up, and it's really hard, it's not easy. I know it was really easy for me to do that because I didn't have any sort of, "Oh, I need it," whether it was addiction or whatever. I didn't have that. I could easily say, "Okay, I'm not doing it." But so my hat's off to everybody that is trying out there because I know there's some people that it's not so easy, and maybe hearing that's like, "Oh, yeah, it's easy for you to say." So, I just thought I'd throw that out there, but man, this band is just so good. I can't. Like, I just again, like, if you've never listened to Bayside, I think we have to appreciate bands like this because they're so important to music, to the scene, to the genre, just whatever genre they fit in, right? Because we just said they don't really, but I just think that they're such a special band, and I think the fact that they're still putting out incredible music, I think they're putting even better out music now than they have, and that's odd to say because, like, all our favorites were kinda early in their career, but I think they're just one of those bands that when you see them live, they're so good every time they hit. They're some of the kindest people, and they truly care about their fans because I don't know if you know this, Justine, but, like, when they open up, last tour or whatever it was, they play I don't know if they collected these audio things, from people talking about Bayside where they're like, "Bayside saved my life. I've seen them this many times. They're my favorite band," and they play it as they walk out. And
oh,
I
that's so
think
cool.
yeah, and I think it's so special because I was watching a video just to kinda see, like, what have they been doing because I missed them last tour. It was, like, Bayside and Thrice, which, oh my god, don't even get me started on Thrice, guys. But, like, I think, like, they were on there and on this last tour, I wanna say recently, they were out I forget who they were at, I gotta go double check that, but I was looking at the opening and it was recorded and maybe it was from a music video, maybe I'm wrong, so if anyone knows, but it's they literally would say, like and there were people saying, "Bayside saved my life, I love them, I'm bringing my son to the Bayside show," and I think seeing that and how they've made an impact, like, this band has literally made such an impact on so many people, on my life, on your life, Justine, on so many people's lives, and I think that's what makes them so special, and if you're someone that's like, "I never cared for them. I don't like Anthony Ranieri's vocals. I don't like their sound," that's fine, but you can still really pay respect for a band like this that is paving the way for more, there's constantly changing it up. They have, their song with Spencer of Ice Nine Kills, and I just think that they are just they're Bayside, and they're special, and I hope you just go listen to them after this, and enjoyed this episode. I know it's a little different to talk about the mental health aspect with a band like Bayside. Maybe if you clicked on this, you're like, wait a second. But again, like it's just so important to highlight something like that because when bands are out there and using their platform and talking about it, like that's what makes it better. But I don't know. That's just my plea. Go check out Bayside. Go listen to Bayside. They're amazing. I can't wait to see them. And if they're listening to this, we would love to have you on too. Like I don't want to be that person, but um just love them so much. And I think they're now getting all these younger fans, and I think it's really cool to see that shift of people finding Bayside for the first time. So, and another band I saw them with, Newfound Glory. That's another one. I'm like, wait, I know I've seen. I mean, they toured with everybody, so you probably have seen this
Yeah.
band. So don't say you probably haven't. So that is our lovely rant on Bayside. But again, this episode was dedicated to my buddy Will, and I wanted to put it out there and talk about Bayside and have this out there. And again, if you find in your heart and you want to donate to his GoFundMe, it'll be down below in the description. Again, no pressure, just I want to share it and I want to use the platform to share it because I just think when people are really going through something like that, whether it's a kindness of words or anything like that, it means a lot. And I think the hardest thing when people are going through something like that, they want to compare. And I think you cannot compare when someone's going through something like that. I think the most important thing to always do is to listen and just be there. And if this is the small, tiny step to give somebody a little bit of a breather in their day of struggling, I'm glad I can do an episode like that. So, yes, I love Will and I love Bayside, and I know he loves them very, very much, and he loves Circa. So, we got the Circa episode. Here's the Bayside one. So, as for Justine and I, we're going to let you go. We're going to let you go about your day. We have more episodes on the way. It's going to be a crazy, crazy busy month, but we're going to get through it. And it's going to be really, really fun. We have a lot of things planned, and I hope you guys stick around. As always, you can follow the show on any app you are listening to this right now. Go ahead and do that. Again, if you are a Google podcast listener, let me know. It's going away. I don't know when it's going away. You have to tell me where you want this because I don't know. I put it up about YouTube Music, and I feel like no one knows about it or uses YouTube Music. So let me know. I want you to be able to hear this. So that's going on and just so much more. And we appreciate you guys and listening every single week. And I can't wait to share all that's coming up. And yeah, go listen to Bayside. Just go do it and then come back to us and say what your favorite song is. Maybe I'll put a thing up to make sure you listen to them and check them out because such a great, deserving band and we love them so much. But you guys will hear us next Tuesday. You know the drill. New episodes every Tuesday. And that's when you're going to hear us. So I don't know what else to say, guys. I don't know what else to say. We'll see you guys next Tuesday. All right.